Morning. You rock fans just love rock music. You mods, you just love modern music. Us cunts, we love country music. Stumble out of bed and the clock's not clicking, wondering where I left my ambition. I yawn and stretch and try to come to life. Jump in the shower and the blood's not pumping, out in the streets and the car's not jumping, 'cause folks like me ain't working. 9 to 5, not working. 9 to 5, it's quite hard to make a living, barely getting by. It's all taking and no giving. They don't seem to mind, and they never give you credit. It's enough to drive you crazy if you let it. I've got enough time over the next few months, I figure, to work out how to play that. Dolly Parton, you are just so fantastic. You proper know how to play, proper know how to write a song. Okay, I want to talk about not working 9 to 5 and what the government can do about it and what the government should do about it. Those are two things that are very, very different. I'm hearing all sorts of calls about what the government should and shouldn't be doing. And there are all sorts of things the government could and perhaps couldn't be doing. As I've said with the capital markets and whatever, we're seeing we are at the extent of what the government can do, and we're seeing reactions to that. We're still seeing, stock market is still not the place of choice to be, and the bond market yields going up. The government, people are questioning whether the government actually is the lender of last resort, the guarantor of everything. Is it feasibly possible for the government to guarantee and underwrite this completely unknown number? Now, without going back over the things I've already said, i.e. suspend the stock market, abandon the charging of interest and repayment of capital for the period of this emergency, and stop all commodity speculation, let's leave those things aside, okay? I want to think about what the government could do to help companies and what they should do or could do. They're two different things. If you imagine we have two companies, A and B. A is a single person, small employer, someone like me. B is a big employer, someone like British Airways. Okay. I had to shut down my business and lay off my staff at the beginning of the week because of it's a food business. It's a little food business, and we just cannot get people in the small little restaurant that we have and safely, and it's just not on. You can't, the idea of being that close to each other, contagion, etc. The rightful advice is shut. Okay, so that's what we've done. My girls are out of work. As soon as it's back to normal, we'll open up again and they'll have their jobs back. I can't afford to pay them while we're not working. British Airways, let's say it has 3,000 people, so it can't fly, so it no longer is an airline. So it gets rid of all of its air hostesses and non-essential, what they regard non-essential crew. They're all various things happen to them. Either they're laid off, some people are made redundant, some people are sacked, some people are on contracts and the contracts are just dropped. Now, there's a big argument about, well, you've got to save the airlines because there's 3,000 people there or whatever. And what will kill the airlines but won't kill me is I haven't got a mortgage, they have. They have to pay and fund debts. They've got leases on planes. They've got commitments to staff, etc. So let's ignore me and think about British Airways and their 3,000 people. So the management have made the decision, right, this is a serious time, it's us or them. Let's get rid of all the staff we can. Out the window with them. Can't argue with that because this is serious times, right? If that business wants to survive, it has to make aggressive decisions. It needs to go to its creditors because its creditors now have got hold of its balls and they can squeeze and determine what they want. And same with the banks or whatever, anyone they're in debt to. All of a sudden these people come out of the background and you notice that your testicles are in their hands because that's it, you owe them money. They've legally got the power to extort whatever they like from you. So you've got rid of your staff, but you've still got your debt. Can you negotiate that debt? Here is where I say, quite simply, for the period of the emergency, the government just needs to step in and go, there isn't that. That debt does not exist. It's not that it doesn't exist. It means that while this emergency is on, that debt won't accrue interest. They won't have to pay back capital. We won't allow a lender to make this situation worse. The situation is already bad enough. Okay. So, say we've managed to suspend the debt thing. So the company's not going to be foreclosed by its the lenders. Okay. So that's a good thing. We could enact that piece of legislation straight away. We've done it before in emergency wartime situations. It's simple to do. It would save the infrastructure of the company being completely destroyed. What then do we do with the people that are left? Well, remember, they've notionally got rid of, say, 90% of their staff. They've just binned them or whatever, thrown them onto the state, said, we can't afford to keep them, you've got to deal with that. Whether that means they end up in the strange bit of having to pay redundancy or whatever, that's all an interesting area. But you've got 10% of the people left. What do those 10% of the people do to save that company? Now, my advice, if I was running that company, number one, I wouldn't run it the way they ran it in the first place, because I do not see the need for the chairman of a company to earn so much more than the employees, and I don't see that across every level of management in that company. But what I would say is this, right, for the period of the emergency, I am running that company, I'm the chairman. Actually, I don't know if you've noticed this, guys, but because we can't fly, right, although I am the chairman, I'm the chairman of a non-flying company. Do I need to be paid $5 million a year to actually not do anything? Because you know what I'm going to be doing now? Fuck all, because I can't fly the planes. So until we get back to normal, actually, although I am on the payroll because I get to make the decisions, I'm not actually going to be doing anything. And that goes for all of the management that you keep. The essential maintenance staff, they're going to be working as per normal. They're going to be cleaning, they're going to be repairing planes, doing all the stuff that needs to be done to keep them alive. So those guys, they're doing their job as they ever were. Just pay them as they ever were. That's an essential debt. Everyone else who's not working essentially, what you need to do is go back to before the emergency, go to wherever the lowest paid member of that organisation was, okay, whatever that is, whatever that lowly being might be, and say, okay, we want to preserve our company. We will accept the wage of the lowest person that we used to pay. So the managing director, instead of working for $5 million a year plus shares, will work for minimum wage, maybe minimum wage plus 20 pence an hour. Okay, that would drastically cut your wage bill and would allow the company to make serious steps to save itself. Okay, so the government steps in, suspends the repayment of debt. They've already thrown people onto the state who are going to need support, and the government is trying to support those people through the normal mechanisms. The company itself needs to say, right, well, we're serious about this too. We will take a pay cut down to the lowest level of what we used to pay everyone else. It was acceptable for them to work for us at that price. We will now work for the company and the investors at that price until the emergency is over. Okay, that all sounds pretty logical, maybe too logical. What happens about debt? Now, debt's an interesting thing. You know, I've gone on and on about personal debt, rent, etc. What happens about government debt in these markets? The markets are just about to take the trousers off the government and kick its shabby arse up and down the street. And the reason they're doing that is because they're allowed to. Right? At the current moment, the financial markets, and for the financial markets read people who need to borrow, people who need to spend, to lend, and the hundreds of thousands of speculators who stand on the edge gambling in what is just the biggest casino in the world. These guys, because they're allowed to gamble and trade in debt, are forcing the price of government debt up. They are making the government have to pay more in this emergency than it would have to pay. And the way they do that is by using the futures market. If I had some money that I wanted to invest or lend to the government, I would have to make a simple decision. Do I believe them? Do I think they'll give me the money back? Is it a good bet? Are they a safe place to leave my money? If so, I go out and buy a government bond. If I get tired of the idea that the government are lending so much money to people, I'm worried that won't pay me back, I can go and sell the bond that I've bought. Right? I go and find someone else who wants to buy it and I sell it. That's quite straightforward. That's just called lending or investing in the bond market. Now, the futures market is nothing like that, because the futures market says this. You haven't got any money to lend the government. In fact, you're not even going to get involved in lending the money to the government. What you're going to do is you can make a futures agreement, a contract ahead of time to potentially lend the government some money. The fact that you're never going to do it is irrelevant. But what we'll do is we'll agree that some date in September, I will agree that I will lend the government $1 million, and I'll lend them it at 2%, 3%. Now, before this all started, that was all going on straightforward. People were lending money to the government. They saw that it was reasonable. The government are now facing this emergency and trying to bail everything out, and therefore they need to borrow more money. So what is happening at the moment is in the futures market, all the hot money, and for hot money read all the money that's run by hedge fund managers and other speculators, is basically gambling that the government can't afford to borrow what it's borrowing, because this is an unforeseen emergency. And so they're saying, well, the government's in really big trouble. What we'll do in this state of national emergency to help the people out and to help the economy is we'll sell fucking government bonds that we don't own. Okay, now that's what the futures market allows you to do. It allows you to sell bonds you don't own. So in the same way that it allows you to add to the crash in the stock market, it allows you to drive up the cost of borrowing for the government in time of emergency. Now, in any normal emergency, what you would do is say, we don't need speculators pillaging the stock market, we'll shut the stock market. We don't need people who are not lending the government money, standing on the edge of the market, gambling like they're in some massive fucking great casino, moving around hundreds of billions of dollars, speculating against the government being able to help the people. So this is why I've said we need to close the futures markets, right? It's because speculators are allowed to speculate on the cost of government debt. If they don't want to lend the government money, by all means don't, just fuck off and keep it to yourself. But that is completely different from what's happening in the futures market, where you allow hot money laundered out of drugs and illegal deals into the market to stand on the edges and just gamble non-stop about how much trouble the government's in. In a state of emergency, you need to shut that down. I don't think there's really much more to say about this one at the moment. I need to go back and try and work on that song, because not working 9 to 5 could be an anthem for some of us. Not working 9 to 5, it's quite hard to make a living, barely getting by. It's all taking and no giving. They don't seem to mind and they never give you credit. It's enough to drive you crazy if you let it. Matthew, I hope that helped.